Hello everyone, my name is Scott. Welcome back to my 20-year film festival, a series in which I recommend 14 movies from each of the last 20 years, starting with 1995 and ending with 2014. The number 14 comes about simply because film festivals are typically about 2 weeks long, and so I'm recommending one film for one day. If you want to make your own film festival devoted to one of these years, I got 14 movies all lined up. You can watch like one per night if you feel like it. Of course, you've probably seen a lot of these before, but for the ones you haven't, hopefully you'll be interested in a few of them. Whenever I do a particular year, the first recommendation is usually some big blockbuster, big FX-filled action picture, science fiction picture. And unfortunately, I couldn't find too many from this year that I really loved, that could really strongly recommend. The closest I could come was Gravity, but I usually recommend people see Gravity on a gigantic movie screen. And you can't do that anymore. It's been gone from the theaters for a little while now, and, so the impact isn't as strong. And I don't find it to be a particularly well-written movie. It's exciting, but it's so much more exciting on a huge screen. It's a real butt-clencher for me when I first saw it. So instead of recommending Gravity, I'd like to suggest instead a British thriller called Closed Circuit. It was directed by John Crowley and stars Eric Bana and Rebecca Hall. The plot involves a bombing in London, of a marketplace in London, basically, and they've arrested a Middle Eastern man for the crime, and he's expected to give a guilty verdict and receive a sentence, and the whole thing would go away so that the nation can start healing again. But what his attorney finds out is that there's actually some shenanigans going on involving the British Secret Service, that he may have actually been working for them to inform on the terrorist cell that he was involved with before the bombing actually happened. But unfortunately, since the bombing took place anyway, they could get in a lot of trouble for not stopping it. Eric Bana plays the defendant's attorney assigned by the state, but some of the evidence for or against him is meant to be top secret, and that he does not have access to that. He's not privileged to view that information. So the court basically appoints a special advocate whose sole purpose it is to look at the classified material and then make arguments for the defendant based on that information, and that is the Rebecca Hall character. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a conflict of interest here because Eric Bana and Rebecca Hall's characters used to be involved with each other, which is something that they don't disclose to the court, and that gets them in some trouble. This is a really good suspense thriller. Julia Stiles is in as well. She plays an American journalist who's poking around and finds some discrepancies and tries to help Eric Bana with that. Jim Broadbent is in as well, playing a friend of Eric Bana, who advises him to be careful in the questions that he's asking and the information he's looking for, because it could get him into more trouble than he can handle. Really enjoyed this movie quite a lot. Whenever it's on cable, I watch at least a little bit of it. It's a lot of fun. Well, fun, I should say. It's exciting. It's an exciting movie. Next, I'd like to talk about a movie called Magic. This is a rather low-budget indie movie that probably not a lot of people have heard of. The director is Sebastian Silva, who went on to do a film called Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus, which got some limited release. But Magic didn't see theaters at all in Chicago, unfortunately, which is too bad because it's really interesting. The main character is played by Juno Temple, who is an American who's visiting... Boy, I took some notes here, but I forgot to write down exactly where she was visiting. Anyway, her friend Emily Browning has taken her to visit some friends away from home on an isolated island. But as it turns out, Emily Browning has to leave as soon as they get there because she has something to take care of elsewhere, and so Juno Temple is left alone with all these people that she doesn't know, including Michael Cera, who plays a guy who is sort of off-putting and teases her a lot and ends up pulling some pranks on her that are really actually quite dangerous. This is a really interesting movie. I like Juno Temple a lot, and this is just sort of a really intense, kind of tense movie because you never know when things are going to go so bad that someone's going to get seriously hurt. Yeah, like this movie a lot. You can probably find it on disc, or maybe it's a streaming somewhere. One movie that got a theatrical release, a very limited theatrical release, but really I haven't even seen on DVD anywhere, so it's probably only available streaming on cable, is a comedy called It's a Disaster. As it happens, Julia Stiles is also in this movie. She's the main character in it, actually. She has brought her new boyfriend, David Cross, to a sort of a lunch party with some other couples that she knows. America Ferrera is one of the other people in this group. I'm not really familiar with a lot of the other actors. I think one of the actresses in the film was in the television series called The Witches of East End on Lifetime. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, what happens is they all sort of hang out at this place, drinking and eating, and generally just like not really getting along as well as they ought to for a whole bunch of close friends. And suddenly they get word that there's been a biological attack in the city where they live, and they need to stay inside because the chemical agent or biological agent is going to slowly creep into their neighborhood. They'll breathe it, and they're all going to die. And they're like, okay, so what do we do now? And this is a comedy, actually. It's a comedy of them, basically trying to get along with each other, and not being able to do so, and really sort of all their little sort of petty squabbles getting magnified with the direness of the situation. It's a really fun movie. It's directed by Todd Berger, whose work I'm not familiar with, but it's killer. It really is a killer movie, and I don't mean that as a pun, although maybe I kind of do. Short Term 12 is another indie movie. It's very, very highly acclaimed. It came out towards the end of 2013. It's directed by Justin Cretton, and as the main character, we have Brie Larson, who works in a foster home. No, not a, it's more like a care facility for kids who are in the foster system. Some of them get taken in by families. Most of them kind of stay where they're at. Those that turn 18, they age out of the system. They have to basically leave, but it's her job basically to care for them within the rules as best they can, as best she can. And she encounters a lot of kids with abuse problems and parental issues and what have you. Obviously, because they're there, they really don't have parents. But it's about her and one of her co-workers who are romantically involved, sort of dealing with the issues sort of day to day. Really good drama, really good, and I like Brie Larson a lot. I'm really excited to see her in this movie Room, which is going to be coming out in a couple of months. So that's Short Term 12. Enough Said is one of the last movies that James Gandolfini appeared in. I actually just watched The Drop with Tom Hardy a couple of weeks ago, and I really liked that movie a lot. But I'm going to recommend Enough Said, because it's a very different kind of movie that Gandolfini normally appears in, which is sort of heavy dramas and thrillers and what have you. The main character is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, from, of course, Veep and Seinfeld, and she's a single mother, raising a teen daughter, and she meets Gandolfini through mutual friends, and they strike up a relationship. Julie Louis-Dreyfus is also a professional massage therapist. She visits people's homes with this giant bed which she sets up and gives them their massages, and one of them is played by Catherine Keener, who is a famous poet. Well, as it turns out, Catherine Keener, although they become good friends, she realizes at a certain point that Catherine Keener and James Gandolfini are actually exes. And so she's got a friend who used to be involved with the man she's currently dating, and she tries to keep that keep that from her as much as she possibly can, which gets her into some trouble. She also gets in a little bit of trouble involving one of the friends of her daughter, who wants to spend way more time with Julia Louis-Dreyfus than she really ought to, because she already has a mother. It's a good comedy, and it's one of the best films I think that Gandolfini has been in. Nicole Holofcener directed it, and she's done several movies I think with Catherine Keener. Please Give, yes, that's right, she did Please Give with Catherine Keener. Then there's a French film called Blue is the Warmest Color. The official title is The Life of Adele Part 1, though I kind of doubt there's going to be a Part 2, or it's actually Parts 1 and 2. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the logic is behind that, but it's based on a graphic novel called Blue is the Warmest Color, which is what the movie was called here in America. It's directed by a man named Abdelatif Kashishi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that badly. Anyway, the main characters are played by Léa Seydoux, who of course is in the new James Bond movie, and she was in Ghost Protocol, and Adele Exarchopoulos, who I really wasn't familiar with prior to this film. The main character is Adele, whose character's name is also Adele. And she basically, it's about 3 hours worth of her life from high school through her young professional life as a kindergarten teacher. She has a series of relationships. The most significant is with Léa Seydoux, and so it's just basically her sort of romantic struggles as well as her professional and family life as well. But the emphasis, of course, is on the romance in her life. Um, Next we have Don John, which is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's first film as a director. He also starred in it. Who else is in this? Scarlett Johansson and Glenn Headley and Tony, sorry, not Tony. Oh man, what's the guy's name? Oh my goodness, I forgot his name. Anyway, he plays a young guy who is, what does he do exactly? What's his job? I can't remember exactly. He's on the make, basically. He's out there scoring with the ladies at the clubs every night. And he meets Scarlett Johansson. She is like the perfect girl for him, but she is very demanding and very insistent that he meet certain standards of hers. And then while he's doing that, he's also basically at home basically every night, pleasuring himself on pornography. And he kind of figured that the theme of the movie would end up being to value a person-to-personal relationship versus, you know, just straight sexual gratification. But actually, the theme of the movie turns out to be something very different. It turns out to be to get involved and vary your life rather than simply live habitually, which is something that I didn't recognize until close to the end of the movie. Yeah, it's really, really stylishly directed, especially in terms of the editing. Hope Joseph Gordon-Levitt makes a few more movies, because this one was really good. Tony Danza. Yes, Tony Danza, that's right. Glenn Headley and Tony Danza play his parents. Right, forgot about that. Also, Julianne Moore is in it as well. He ends up taking a night class at Scarlett Johansson's behest to sort of improve himself a bit, and Julianne Moore is taking the class with him, and so they strike up a friendship there as well. Really good movie. So that's 7 movies for 2013, and I'll recommend 7 more in the next video I make. I hope you'll tune in for that. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.